the Know Your Gear podcast. Today's episode of the Know Your Gear podcast is brought to you by Patreon members, channel members, and viewers who like and subscribe. Thank you for making this possible.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Know Your Gear podcast, episode 404. So we're getting into the 400s. I mean, we're into it, but we're getting into it. Hope everybody had a fantastic week. My week has been interesting to say the least. I'll explain that. I'll explain it. And anyways, I hope everybody's ready to have a good time on a Friday afternoon. Talking about guitars, the thing we love. So what's going on? I need to tell you a funny story, funny odd, that I've been dealing with. So last Friday was an interesting episode for me because I cannot hear on my right ear. So let me back to the story. I just want to let you guys know today's show, I had notified the moderators yesterday there might not be a show today, but I pulled it through. And so let me just tell you what's going on. So not this Monday that just passed, which would be March. Let me look at the calendar. Maybe I won't look at the calendar. I open the calendar. Okay. So not this March the 3rd, but the 24th of February. I woke up that morning and started noticing that I can't hear out of my right ear, right? It's all clogged, something, right? It's like just like it feels like I have an earplug in it. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of weird, but sometimes you get sinuses. And I've had that happen to me, my ear plugged up on an airplane before. So I actually have to take like pseudoephedrine when I fly short flights, especially flights where I'm spending more time inclining going up and down than you do flying, especially short flights to California. So I decided not to fly to California to meet the CEO of Guitar Center. I drove. So we were already on the edge of, we're going to drive or fly. That cinched it up. We're definitely driving. So Wednesday I drove to California. I stayed that night. I drove up that afternoon, stayed that night, got up that morning, had the interview with the CEO, and then we drove back. And the reason is I just wasn't feeling that great. I'm fine. I have no cold, no nothing. My ear is literally plugged up. And so anyways, on the way home, we got to a part of the trip where you kind of go through the mountains a little bit. And my head the pressure was so intense. I started feeling pain. Like everything was agonizing, like shooting pain. And then my ear started leaking, which is a weird experience if you haven't had it. I haven't had an ear infection since I was 7. So apparently, so we drive back. And so the next morning, I wake up, same thing. My ear is just leaking. I have no hearing in my right side of my head. So I did Friday's show last week, going, I'll just push through, get through it. Saturday came, same thing, leaking ear. Sunday comes, leaking. My ear's still leaking. I know this is gross. I'm sorry, guys. It's leaking water. It's not, but it feels like water. It looks like water. And so I go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, we can't even see your eardrum. It's so swollen. We can't even see in there. So they give me ear drops, which are like antibiotics. Do that. And then, even though I felt fine, everything's been great, Wednesday, get the fever. Now I have a fever, achy, tired, again, no flu symptoms, no sickness. I haven't had a flu or been sick since 2001. So we go back to the doctor, and now they do some stuff to flush my ear and see, and now they can kind of see the eardrum, and they're like, oh yeah, it's you're messed up. So they gave me pills. I have drops and pills. They said that it looks like it'll be better by Sunday. The reason I'm telling you this is because I'm having trouble hearing. I hear myself in my own head louder than I hear anything else. And we'll do Guitar of the Week. That was one reason I was definitely not interested in doing Guitar of the Week last week. We'll do Guitar of the Week, and I'll just kind of push through. Anyways, that's what happens. Apparently, you get earaches. They think maybe I got water in my ear. They don't know. They don't know what caused it. So hopefully I'll be better by Wednesday or Sunday. They said if I'm not better by Sunday, then I have to go back Monday. We'll find out. So there you go. Nice, huh? All right, let's get into some cool subjects. Let's talk about some early riser questions that I saw. Let me scroll back. And the first one I saw was, okay, hold on. thought I saw one. You know what? I grabbed one. Let me just grab the one I grabbed. All right. This one came from Dave. Dave said, "Hey, early bird question. I saw Texas Toast has a vacuum machine for applying a veneer. Can I just glue on the veneer on my build by hand and clamp it? It's just a flat Explorer, not arched. Tips on veneer." Well, remember, I'm not really a builder, so much a repair person, so I'm more experienced when fixing issues than starting them. But in my experience, you definitely want to vacuum the tops if it has any kind of carves or anything you're bending to, precisely. A flat top like you're talking about, I've seen and done the same thing where I didn't use a vacuum. I don't have a vacuum bag. I don't have a machine that vacuums tops because I just don't need it. So when I've had to glue a veneer on the top of a guitar, it's always been, luckily for me, flat. Obviously, even a Strat would be a problematic because, you want to bend it over the edge, as the arm contour. So you definitely want somebody that has a bag for that. In my past, what happened was there was 2 shops that I worked with. They had it and they did that stuff because they did repair and building. And so I would just go, okay, you guys do this part. So in your case, with an Explorer with a totally flat top, we're talking about like, it's not even, we got to mean flat. Like we're not even talking about like it's coming down on the sides or anything. I think you could get away with it with clamps, and using, like blocks, wood blocks, put them down and clamp. So you want to cover as much as that surface area as possible. You definitely don't want any of those, any spot to not get the same amount of pressure. Otherwise it will show itself. And then you'll have to kind of sand the top and try to level it all out. And it's a mess. So that's been my experience. But if you're a home person doing it and you're doing a flat top, don't worry about having the bag. It is necessary, but it's more of a luxury. A lot of tools are luxuries more so than necessary for certain things. And there's a lot of do-it-yourselfer channels out there. I would actually consider looking them up, small home builds and stuff like that. A lot of them tend to have little cool tricks. Like I tend to be loaded up with the fix tricks. Here's how you fix something easily. But when you're building something, you got to go to those channels that are just really good at showing you the builds. A funny thing that happened when I started my YouTube journey is I made it very clear to myself, as a mission statement, like when I do any of these like tech tips or stuff, I won't do anything that shows more than what you need. And I don't know if I ever told you the story, but when I met the Stu Mac guys for the very first time, we had coffee at like a Starbucks next to the NAMM show. This is years and years and years ago. The channel was still pretty new. And we were talking about my build videos. And at that time, it was really the Sharp My Axes. And they were like, those are things that are really doing good. And I said, yeah. And at that time, I didn't let anybody see the shop. Now, keep in mind, I had the shop at the store, and then I had a shop outside the store. Later. Either way, you never saw either one. In fact, if you look at all the videos back when the videos were still being filmed, sometimes in the store, I never showed the shop. I never showed the tools in the shop. And I said, and when I started doing Sharp My Axe, here's a little fun fact for you. It was done. They were always done on my daughter's art table. And I was telling the Stu Mac guys, I go, yeah, I do all the Sharp My Axes on my daughter's art table. And they're like, oh, and I go, yeah, not in any of my, so you can't see my tools. You can't see what I'm doing. And they said, really? And I said, yeah, because I wanted people to see that they could do it with just what I'm showing. I said, I feel like when I see those videos this person has this amazing shop with all these tools, expensive tools, the first thing I think is like, yeah, if I had all those tools, I'd be able to do it too, right? So it's like, no, I wanted to show like, no, you just need a screwdriver and a file and a piece of sanding paper, and the table, and this is how you do it. So that's how I kind of saw it. So I really believe that when you're starting out, so that was my long way of saying, if you're starting out doing repair, if you're starting out doing building guitars, building instruments, I would first seek out the unprofessional channels, if that makes any sense. Seek out the people showing you the easiest way, because look, I say it all the time. I have lots of great tools, and sometimes I'll show a tool, even a Stu Mac tool. It's like $30. Somebody's like, $30 is ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, it's a luxury. It's a luxury tool. I could do it with a lot less, but as you do stuff, you start thinking about your time more so than the project itself. It's just like, how fast can I get through this project is more money to me. and convenience. So I would suggest seeking those out. And luckily for you, you have a huge community of guitar nerds here, and they could probably put in the comments, and definitely do it in the permanent comments, not just the chat. But if you want to do both, guys, maybe hook him up and say, check out this channel who does it, like I said, with limited tools, who builds out there with limited tools out of a house kind of thing. I've watched a bunch over the years, and I've learned way more from somebody in their garage than I've ever learned watching any official videos doing something. Because again, the focus of the video is just like, this is all you need. You need these 3 tools, and this is how I would do it. So, all right. What else? Okay. Amanda sent me this one. It says from Alan. It says, hey, Phil, my Tele American Pro 2 does an annoying sitar harmonic sound when playing the open E string. Okay, I'm assuming it's the high E string, but we'll go with it. I've tried a lot of fixes. What could it be? So what it is one of 2 things, but it's most likely the first, not the second. The slot is cut too wide, or and unappropriately at the angle. So it's not angled correctly. So a slot, when you cut a nut slot, you cut it at a slight downward angle towards the headstock. Okay, so it's a little deeper towards the headstock than it is where the fretboard meets the nut. And then obviously having it too wide. It's very common. It happens all the time. There's let's say 3 reasons I've seen that it happens. 1, they cut the slot, and again, they cut it too flat and they don't angle it down so the string's not seating in there strong enough. That's one cause. Second cause is they cut the slot way too large, maybe using the wrong file, or just got overzealous with it. One thing you can do very easily is just tilt your file. Is really dramatic. So when you're cutting the slot, if you just tilt your file, you're going to make it wider than it should be. Okay. And the other thing is sometimes they just go too wide at the end, again, towards where the fretboard meets the nut. All of those will cause that problem. That's definitely the most likely culprit. I'm assuming, because I think you said it was a Fender, right? You said American Pro 2. So American Pro 2 still should have a string tree on the E and the B. So again, if we're talking about the high E, the string tree should be pushing enough down pressure on that. I think the American Pro 2 has string tree, but not on the high string, right? Nope, on the high string. Okay, cool. Yeah, because so you should have a string tree, but in case you don't, that could be the issue too, is you're not getting enough downward pressure. And again, that sometimes causes that effect. The fixes for this, either way, the fixes of this are pretty simple, and it depends on how much time and money you want to spend. First, easiest fix is change the string. So if I'm assuming I got to assume at first that you haven't tried these things. So I'm just going to tell you the process. The first thing is replace the string, because again, the string could be the problem. It's not likely, but why not? When I say it could be the problem, it's not so much the string material. It could be just the way the string was put into the locking nut, or maybe the way the string was installed is just not correct. It happens. So if basically what I'm trying to say is, if you haven't tried that, try it. If you're for sure that's not the issue, because you install it yourself and you think it's fine and the string seems fine, then you got to go to the second thing, which is the first thing I would do is I take a piece of paper, just like a little piece of paper like this. I tear off a corner about so. Like so. Is for those listening later on the listening side, I have a piece of paper that's about 1/8 of an inch. I'm sorry, it's about 1/4 inch wide, okay, and about 1/2 inch long. And what you do with this piece of paper is I just fold it in half, like so. I have a video of this somewhere. I always say that, but it's true. I have videos out there, but we're working on cataloging that. So anyways, like this. See how this works? Let me show it to you guys. So like that, it looks like that. Like I just bent the piece of paper in half. Then what I want you to do is loosen the E string, the high E string, or the low E, whichever's doing it. Stick this in between the string and the nut so that this piece of paper is just shoved in there. And then tighten the string, but make sure the string doesn't push it past the nut, because sometimes it'll push out of the way. So maybe start it a little bit towards the fretboard. And then let it just kind of pinch in there, right? So let it pinch in there. And what will happen with the piece of paper is either it'll fill in the sides of the nut slot, or it will, that's what it's going to do. It's basically going to fill it in. It's going to like pack the material in. Sometimes I've tried it where don't dampen it, but sometimes I've seen where you can dampen it with, I put a little oil on it, but don't do that. Do that, okay? And then pluck the string, make sure the paper is not flapping or anything like that, because sometimes the paper can vibrate too, and see if that reduces it or eliminates it. And that'll tell you immediately then what I'm talking about. The nut slot is either too wide. If that doesn't change anything, in other words, the sitar effect still, it could be the angle, and that way you want to check that too. And that's pretty easy to fix as well. If you want to fix that, you can use a nut file. But if you don't have a nut file, you can take a piece of 400 grit sandpaper and wrap that on if you have a 9 gauge or 10 gauge string. If it's a 10 gauge string that you're using, use a 9. If it's a 9, just use a 9 because you probably don't have an 8. Use a piece of string, fold it over the piece of, same thing way you did this. Take a piece of sandpaper, fold it in half, stick the string through it, and use that as a nut file. I have short videos on that too as well. Either way, get that angle correct. And then if those things don't work, then you're looking at a new nut. So there's also the baking soda and super glue technique again, but again, I'm trying to keep it simple, just somewhere to get you started. So that's how you're gonna fix and diagnose that problem. Okay. But it's really easy is what I'm trying to tell you. It's not a hard problem to figure out. And then if that doesn't work, it's something else. And then you just start from there. Okay, hold on a second. I'm just scrolling through the comment section. If you're putting a question towards me, obviously Amanda grabs them and stuff, but also put question marks first. That just helps us see them. If the subject or the question is for you, or for me, not for you, for me. Try that twice as fast. Yeah, I promise my head's not a mess from having I have mono hearing right now. Only have one ear. Okay, this is from Shaq with a Q. It says, cheers from Singapore. Hey, welcome, Singapore. It says, would you recommend the Gibson Satin ES335 or the Heritage 535? I don't know the answer, but let me finish reading your question, and then we'll get into it. He says, what's the best way to support your channel? Okay, that's a question I can answer easily. Thanks for being so kind and generous with all of these years. Thank you for the compliments. To support the channel, it's super easy. You can do one of like 5 things. You can support it by becoming a Patreon member. You can support it by subscribing and liking videos, making comments, or just watching the videos to the end. To the end is more important than watching the videos. Just keep watching as much of the content as possible and share the videos. It's a big deal. Those are all massive amounts of support. In the end, for every channel is different. Okay, so this is important, and I'm sorry to get sidetracked on your Heritage Gibson question. I'll come right back to it, but this is important to mention. Every channel on YouTube, I want you to think of a lot of the channels as being totally different and how their business model works. Maybe you don't care, that's fine, but I think it's insightful. Just because one YouTube channel said, do this, hey, if you want to support me, do this, it helps, doesn't mean that will work for everybody else. On my particular channel, a large portion of what I make comes from my views on YouTube. That is a big part. The closest second would be then Patreon, okay, the Patreon supporters. But YouTube, the actual YouTube, so what I'm saying that is a lot of channels, you hear them saying I don't make anything on YouTube. That's true. Very, very few channels make anything on YouTube. I'm very lucky to make money on YouTube, and I have since 2017, I've effectively been making money on YouTube as a platform. And that's because I get views, but more importantly, I get, you guys engaged and you guys watch the end, and that's how you've been supporting me. So what's funny is that I know the first always answer is, and the reason I'm going on this tirade is because I don't want you to think that money is the only way you can help a channel. You can seriously help a channel by watching to the end. But if it's a smaller channel, you could help them by sharing, because you got to understand when the algorithm decides not to share a video, you can break the algorithm, not you personally, but a lot of you could, if you shared that smaller content's videos. So same thing. What I will tell you is if I make a video, and this goes for any content creator, this is pretty safe. If I make a video and you notice man, that I loved it, and I don't see a lot of people watching it, share it. Share it to somewhere. Just post it on your Facebook. Who cares? If you're I only know 10 people and none of them play guitar. Who cares? Throw the link on Facebook, throw the link on whatever platform you have to share with. And that will help creators, because then people click the link and the algorithm will notice it. And then start suggesting again. So that's a way to support channels. So, but thank you guys for all the support you've given this channel for all the years, over the years. And I'm just letting you know that's how you can support me. It's just watch the videos, but obviously the other ways are great. On the podcast, the long show, the best way to support financially is the Patreon, because of the fact that they're not sharing 2-hour videos on YouTube. I don't care how much anybody likes it or not likes it. It's not going to get shared. Plus, on the audio version of this, which gets more viewers that a lot of you are listening to, not right now, but you'll be listening to this when this audio posts. That's free. I don't get. The sponsorship is only patrons. I don't have paid sponsors. Okay, so back to your question of the ES35 and the satin finish, or your Heritage 535. I can't be a hypocrite. I have the ES335. I don't have the satin one, but I have that one. I don't have the Heritage 535, but I've said it before. When I bought my 335, that's what I could find. That was the guitar that I found that was in the price range I wanted. I was specifically looking to buy a Heritage when I bought my 535. But it was the beginning of COVID. It's where the prices they hadn't even started shooting up yet, but it's around that time started. And I just couldn't find a Heritage 535. I still have never played a Heritage 535. So I don't know how to answer your question with anything other than I really like my Heritage that they sent me, this Heritage guitar. And I've said this before, if it wasn't for the neck being, just a chunky 50s neck, it's a nice neck. It's just, I prefer the 60s profile. So that's why I play my Gibsons more. If the Heritage had the neck, my Heritage had my Gibson's neck, the current, not a Gibson neck, but the Gibsons I like, the 2 Gibsons I like, I would get rid of those 2 Gibsons and just play the Heritage. I prefer the sound of the Heritage over the Gibsons. And I don't know if I prefer the guitar, because like I said, for me, it's all about the neck. But the 535, I'd be curious to check out. I will tell you this, it is my goal to have a 535 eventually on the channel and do a deep dive on it. And then maybe, hopefully, I could give you a good response. But right now, the only thing I can tell you is I love my my 335. I love it. It's a great guitar. So, that's, I don't know. That's the answer. It's a really horrible one. I feel bad about it because it's not really articulate enough, but it's what I can give you honestly with the information I have. Zach says, "Hey Phil, I recently got a PRS Core 20 Custom 24. I loved everything about it, but the bridge. I had my tech deck the bridge. That for those that don't know the term, that means bring the bridge to the body. Very common to say that on a Strat. Deck the bridge just means put the bridge against the body, so it's flat against the body. It's not floating or tilted." And it says, "I had my tech deck the bridge. The internet says, oh no, the internet. What does it say? It says you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't." The internet always loves to tell you what to do. It's what the internet does. It says, I will harm the knife edges. Thoughts? I have never heard that or seen that issue before. And like I said, I don't know. Everybody's just like the internet. Everybody's got an opinion. Here's where my opinion comes from. It comes from hundreds of setups done on custom 24s or, core ones. I was a PRS dealer. I've, went to their factory many times, and there's probably something out there, and it might even some literature out there that PRS is saying, don't do it. It's possible. I've never had a problem decking a bridge on a custom 24 or any PRS that has a tremolo ever, as long as it was done correctly, which I've said this before. The important part to remember with PRS is that it has a 6-screw bridge, but all 6 screws have a groove cut in them, and the bridge is sitting on a knife edge essentially on all 6 of those screws. As long as that's fine, I have no issues. Unfortunately, my custom 24 CE, I'm pointing at a guitar right now, right? So this custom 24 CE semi-hollow that I'm pointing at right now, it is not decked. The bridge is not decked. And because Nathan built me a custom 24 with a hardtail, I no longer have a custom 24 because I don't need it because Nathan made me a better one. But my custom 24 that I had before, the one you guys saw all the time on the channel, that bridge was decked. I never had a problem with it. So, So to answer your question, I don't think you're going to have any problems. That's just my opinion. For what it's worth, it's no different than anyone else's opinion. I'm just giving you the resources, or at least the information where that opinion came from. If you are so concerned, which I don't believe you should be, there is a fix, which is you could block the trim. That's more common on PRSs, is to use a wood block inside the back of the cavity and block the trim so it's blocked like it's decked, except for it's still hanging off the top of the body. One concern, I've never heard that concern before. So, one concern I did hear is that, obviously decking the bridge on a custom 24, puts a lot of pressure on the top, and the top's really pretty and you could crack something or damage something. I've also never seen that, but sure. I mean, in the, hey, just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It's just not something I've seen happen to any of the guitars I've worked on or seen. So blocking it would be a good way to do it. So if you're so inclined to worry about it, I would say block it. But otherwise, I would say not worry about it. It's, DJ, a bunch of letters says the Silver Skies Bridge is decked, I believe. Yep. So, I mean, like I said, I've seen and done, well, I'm going to just put it this way. Okay. I've done it to dozens of people's guitars and no one's ever wanted their money back or had any problems years later. And for those that don't know, when I did repair for 13 years publicly, well, 15 years. It was 15 years I was doing repair to the public. I gave a 1-year warranty with my guitar. So I would give you a sheet. I don't know why I'm about to pick up this random piece of paper, but look, a random piece of paper, like I'm pretending this is the sheet, but it's not. And on there it would say that you would get a 1-year warranty with every repair I did or setup. And that's how I used to do it. So that's my way of saying if I did have a problem, trust me, somebody would come back and at least tell me. So but I understand. I know the internet. All I can tell you about the internet is it's a beautiful thing with lots of information, and it's also something to scare the hell out of you. Just Google, don't do it. But for the joke, just Google, hey, does this red mark on my hand, is that cancer? Just see what the internet says. It's going to be like, don't worry about it, but also you're probably going to die. It's like, that's how the internet is going to be interesting. But thank you for asking the question. Easy Possum, as I think it's Easy Possum. Easy Possum, this is from Amanda sent this, thank you. Says, hey Phil, on my last couple of builds, my tone pots don't work. What could it be? So, I mean, obviously, other than user error, right? I mean, it happens. I have had, so it's happened to me for years because I would buy my potentiometers in bags, right? So I would go to All Parts, or I would go to Antique Electronic Supply, which is in Arizona, in Tempe, Arizona. If you haven't used them, they're pretty much one of my favorite parts companies, is where I buy my parts from. In fact, sadly enough, I saw like a month later after they sent me an email saying, hey, we'd like to sponsor some videos. I'm like, oh, I love you guys. And then I saw it like way too late. But anyways, Antique Electronic Supply, which they also call it, I think, Tubes and More. And they do parts. And so, you buy bags from them in bulk, buying potentiometers in bulk. So buying potentiometers in bulk to cut costs. And so it was really great for years, because what I would do is I would have the parts hanging on the wall, and a customer would come in and say, hey, I need a new pot. And I'd say, oh, it's $6.99. And I go, but if you buy one of the ones, say I use like brands. I go, if you buy one of the ones I buy in bulk, it's like $1 cheaper. And it was great because it cost me like $2 cheaper. It's a way to make an extra buck and save the customer a buck. It's a win-win. So anyways, my point is that when buying in bulk, what I learned is, man, you can get a bunch of bad ones in a row. When you buy onesie twosies, you don't notice it so much. But so it's possible. I had the worst situation I ever had is I had like 4 or 5 25K potentiometers that were just bad on an EMG repair I was doing, and I was losing my mind. Because EMG installs, they come not very common, right? So you don't see it over and over again like you do everything else. And so I was just like, am I doing something wrong? What am I doing? And it was like, eventually, testing, I'm like, no, it's a bad part. It's a bad part. You can test your pots with a multimeter and see if that's the problem. It could be that. It could be something else in the wiring job you did. So one thing I like to do when I'm doing a build from scratch, when I'm not one part swapping, I always build outside the guitar and then test outside the guitar and then drop the whole thing into the guitar, because I don't like to chase a problem like that. Again, everything's about, like, if I today I have 8 hours or 9 hours and I want to get as many guitars through as possible. I'm not trying to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours chasing my tail on one guitar's issue. So I will tend to, so that's one thing I could recommend is if you're installing everything into the guitar and then doing it, you never know what's going on. Something could be grounding out because of the shielding paint. Something can be just flexing in there. Sometimes these pots, if you hit the shafts flex a little bit, something doesn't work. It happens all the time. I've told you guys this in the past that a lot of times you can just, when you're like torquing down the nut on a potentiometer, all of a sudden the potentiometer doesn't work. And it works just by loosening the nut a little bit, and all of a sudden it works again because whatever happened, it compressed down too much. And again, I don't want to say shorted out, but in my mind, that's kind of what I picture it happening as. It just, so yeah, I would definitely do everything on, like a wiring loom, or just do it on like I said, just, I don't know, like just do it on your bench. And that's a good way to isolate the problem, because it removes all, outlying issues. Okay, what else? Okay, this one's from, I think it's Andy, and I apologize because I grabbed it and I just see NDY, but I think I missed grabbing the A. It says, what's up, Phil? Recently heard you mention that you have an Aria Pro 2 guitar, which caught my ear as he owns some, and I don't know many other people who do. I have the XX Deluxe Zebra V. What did you have? So I had an Aria Pro 2. So I don't have it anymore. I had an Aria Pro 2 was my first real guitar. So my first guitar I ever got was JB Player. And then I wanted an Ibanez more than anything, but just Ibanez was not something that was too expensive. It was too premium by all get out. So there was an Aria Pro that was essentially a Jackson copy that I got. That's what it looked like. It just looked like a Jackson copy. And that's what I got. Had a fake looking Floyd Rose bridge on it, and it was humbucker single, and I loved it because it was, it was the best thing I could ever have. But I don't have it anymore. I got rid of it when I got an Ibanez. That was like eventually where I wanted to, from day one, that's what I wanted was an Ibanez. So I finally got one. I got one for my my high school graduation. My mom bought me an Ibanez. But I loved it. And so, I still look at Aria Pros because I kind of would like to own one again one day, but, just haven't found anything that, tickles my fancy. So that's answer that. Okay. Mark wants to say, Mark says, ever tried the fret fixer sold on Reverb? I think it might have been you, Mark. Somebody sent me, some emails. I got a lot of emails this week, guys, and I was reading a lot more and I'm not responding. I just didn't have the energy. I kept, like I said, we think, I'm just giving you the idea. We think the antibiotics just wiped me out because I was fine until I started taking antibiotics, and then I was just wiped. I haven't had antibiotics in 20 years. I have no idea what the effects of them do on me. I just know that I got exhausted. So anyways, I saw somebody's email on that. I clicked the link. I think somebody sent me the link and I looked at it. It looked like the StewMac Fret Kisser. So here's the deal with that stuff. I get a lot of companies reaching out all the time about tools that they sell. And I'll just say it this way. And I'm not saying this is the case with this Fret Fixer. When I see a tool that is like a tool that you can buy from StewMac, if that tool is not like minimum half the cost, I'm not even looking at it. Here's why. I want to save money, but to me, the thing about StewMac is the warranty. It's like a powerful warranty. So StewMac has a very good warranty where they warranty most things for life. Not everything is guaranteed, although they claim it is. I have a bunch of files that I keep thinking I should email them and going, hey, are these under warranty or should I toss these? Because I've worn out some of my crowning files over the years and been buying them. And, but every time I've ever had an issue, and this is pre and post YouTuberness, so I know everybody goes, yeah, but you're a YouTuber. This is before I was a YouTuber too. I would just email StewMac and go, my hammer broke, and they would just send me a new one, so that sometimes, like when I talk about Music Nomad stuff, I talk about I'll like a product of theirs. It's very important. I go, I like it, but I got to like it a whole lot. unless it can, again, it's really, really cheap, because without that warranty, then the cheap doesn't have a factor in that. So I'll take a look at that. The fret fixer. What I saw is, so you know, what does Music Nomad make? They sent it to me. Let's try the fret fixer. Is that the fret fixer? That's not Music Nomad, is it? No, the Music Nomad one is this one. This is the Music Nomad sent me this, and I have not put them through all the paces yet. So as I've told you guys, when companies send me this stuff, I put it through the paces. You know, I try to stay away. It's just how I do things. I try to stay away from tools as sponsorships. So you guys know, very rarely do I do any kind of sponsored video as a tool. When I say sponsored, that's misleading. They send the product. They're not paying me to make the video. Does it make sense? I try to keep that as, you know, like fair. You know, StewMac isn't paying me to do a video of their tool, and then Music Nomad's not paying me to do their video. Just keeping it fair, so that I can give you like a here's what I like about it kind of thing. So in Music Nomad especially, they tend to send me a lot of tools. They just send them to me. Whatever comes out, they're usually sending it. The owner seems to send it to me, which is very nice. And like the save file that I did the video of, which I bought that one, but he sent one later. Isn't it funny? He sent me one. I was a little regretful. I was like, man, I can't believe if I would have just waited, he was going to send me one, I guess. But my point is I try to put those guys through their paces. So I don't know. And then, because it's just on the topic list, by grace, I'm saved. Says, anyone used the Music Nomad nut files? I have them. They're in every video. If you see the case, you'll see it behind me. So I had them, and I have been using them for years. And I've said this before. I could probably do a video about them, but it's so easy to just tell you guys here what the issue is, and I'll tell you. They're very good. The quality is there. So there's no issue there. But I have been using the longer form files that the longer form files that StewMac has made for so long. I'm just used to it. So to me, that little yellow handle thing is cool. So I want to share it with you guys. Music Nomad. So I know you guys know, but it's just nice to have an illustration. Okay. Oh, okay. I tried to cheat and just put Music Nomad file, and I thought it would come up, but they actually came up with a file. Okay, so this is a set. You can see here's a 16-piece set for $239. This is what I'm talking about. This plastic thing that you see here, it's really small, which is cool, but it's really cumbersome to me. It's strange. Now, this file that I'm highlighting right now, which is about 1.5 inches, I don't think it's 2 inches long, it pops out, and I found myself every time using it, popping it out to use it. And then I was holding a little teeny, like 1.5 inch file doing the nut slot, and I was like, I think if you bought this, and I really believe this, if you bought this Music Nomad file kit, this nut file kit, I don't think in most of the cases, like I said, because there's somebody's going to go, I did it and I hate it. That's fine. Okay. But I'm just saying, in most cases, I think you would get it. You'd find its quality. It would work for you and you'd be happy with it. I like that they're very put together nicely. They come in a little case, or you can get a case for them. I have a case for mine. Very nice, easy to find because they're bright yellow. I think that's not a problem. But I think if you're like me and you've spent 20 some on years using one type of tool, like a long StewMac file. In fact, so you know, StewMac doesn't even make, just so you guys understand, StewMac doesn't even make the files that I use, the nut files. They make a version of it that they've, refined, and they've sent me those years ago. And I don't use those either. I use the ones I've been using for literally forever. I just like them. They have little handles. In fact, if you ever see on the wall, if you can see the details on my wall, you'll see a bunch of them have handles, and then you'll see just a bunch of electrical tape because I've cracked the handle so many times. I'm just like glued and taped it back together. So there's just something about, when you have a tool that you use so long that you're just used to using it, that the skill set supersedes everything. So that my ability to use that tool effectively outweighs whatever the new improved tool can give me. So that's why I just tell it to you guys like that. And that's why I'm scared to do certain videos, because I would be in the video just saying, oh yeah, use the StewMac over the Music Nomad, but that would be for me, not maybe for you. Like I said, I don't know if you didn't have 20 years holding a certain file, if the new file would even be a problem for you. So that's just what I'm saying, that's my suggestion, is I would check them out. So, I would actually say, I don't know. So if you guys have, if you have your Sweetwater, rep, if the Music Nomad tools are returnable to Sweetwater, in other words, you can buy them and return them, I would definitely suggest checking out a set, paying the money if you could return it, try it. And if you don't like it, send it back. I don't know if they're non-returnables. I don't know if it's like speakers and stuff. Like speakers are non-returnable and stuff. But if it's returnable, I would say it would be worth a chance to check them out. So, let's see. Tony says, no. Okay, well, it says, no, Tony's responding to somebody. Somebody asked, what pickups are in the black guitar? Do I have a black guitar today? I guess. I don't know. I don't have a black guitar. I have a red guitar with a black stripe. Okay. Let's go to another subject. What's interesting is, let me do this. Let's refresh this. Perfect time to sip some water and see where I'm at. Okay, Zach says, Phil. Oh, we did Zach's. Cameron. Cameron says, what are part casters worth? A shop here in town is selling them with premium components and genuine fender parts for what American fenders go for. I don't think they're worth very much. A parts caster that's my opinion, but it seems to be the general opinion of a lot of players that you tend to, let me put it to you in a way that makes sense, kind of what you're saying they're doing. If I was to buy, a fender body and a fender neck and put it together and throw in like really nice, like Lindy Fralin pickups in it, and then throw in a really nice, I don't know, I'm trying to think, a Callahan bridge, and some Spurzl locking keys, and deck it all out. My guess is no one will want to pay me what I paid for just the parts. So in my experience, it's almost worth more if you break it back down to parts again. There are exceptions, but they are very few. So could a store or a place be building guitars out of parts? I see it all the time. I've met all kinds of luthiers and repairmen across the country who take Warmoth parts and build guitars, and customers pay them top dollar for them. They'll go, yeah, that's what I do. I just put it together out of all, parts, and then I give the customer a bill and they pay it. Sure. I mean, it could be done. But in my experience, it's the value point's not there. That doesn't mean it's don't buy one. It just means you need to be aware. That's the thing. I've said this before, guitar players focus on resale value because of the fact that they know, every guitar player who's honest with themselves knows that in most cases you're not going to love a guitar. Your life experience with guitars is more times even though you think you convince yourself you do love it, over time you just find yourself not playing it as much, and then it has to move on and try the next thing and experiment the next thing to figure out who you're going to be. And having a better resale value makes that more possible. Obviously, if every time you bought a guitar it was worth 1% of what you paid, unless you had a lot of money, your journey is going to be pretty short. So, Soil Sample says, hey, what do you think of fret erasers? I know micro mesh pads are best, but my wife bought me fret erasers. So I did a video using fret erasers. I got a set. It's funny. It's funny to me. I got a set of fret erasers because I said once in a video I don't use them. I don't prefer them. I use other things. And then somebody's like, I really wish I could give this opinion of fret erasers. And then I bought some fret erasers and I said exactly what I'm about to tell you now. I like them. They're really cool. I prefer the way I've been doing it, the micro mesh pads. I'm not saying one way is better than another. It's just what I've been using and what I prefer. It works for my workflow. And, but I still have a set of fret erasers because it takes forever to get through them. I've worn them down a little bit. I like them. I like them. I do not prefer them over my other methods. But again, it's not a better or worse scenario. It's a, 10 years of doing it one way versus, trying to do it a new way. I just have I have systems that I like. Although I do change. I don't want you to, by the way, don't want people to think like I only do one thing one way. I revive myself all the time. But again, it has to present itself as something superior. Like has to be like, wow, how could I ever not do it, this way ever again? Let's see. Killer Tom says part guitars are great because you don't feel bad hacking them up. And again, I agree with Killer Tom. I love parts casters. We're talking about resale value. But no, I think parts casters. So, I think if anything we've learned from real professional musicians in life is that a parts guitar is the best way to get a high-end guitar cheap. I mean, essentially, that's why they did it, right? Then most of them did it because they wanted exactly what they want. A parts guitar is a way to get a custom instrument at almost a below production price. That's why it has value. The problem is that when you go to resell it, it's just like a custom instrument now. Somebody's like, yeah, but if I was going to build a parts caster, this is how I would have done it, not the way you done it. So they want a discount to try your way. Okay. Wendell, what's up, Wendell? He says, all I know is micro mesh pads always work to polish frets. I love micro mesh stuff. I don't know what it was. I don't even know how I eventually had found it. I just one day got it. This is, at least 15 years ago, probably closer to 20. And I just started using them and I was like, I just love this, somewhere around 2000, well, it was during the recession. So let me just talk about this. During the recession, when I was doing repair, all of a sudden I became hyper-focused on how fast I could get something done and quality because I was like, more money because you were trying to figure out, your flow patterns. You're trying to figure out how, you want as much money coming inward as possible when in a situation where money's not coming. So I got hyper-focused and I always remember that. And here's why I remember it. Because the first thing I did, I remember I want to say $2,300. Maybe that doesn't sound like a lot to some of you, maybe it sounds like a fortune. I spent $2,300 in tools. And I don't mean in tools, in additional tools for only the purpose of speeding up how fast I could do things. And I believe micro mesh was one of those first things I bought where I was like, I just want stuff that's going to let me do the job not only better, but faster. Like I said, I just want to get through the same work faster. And because of the fact that, in a world where, you're concerned about money every day because there's this economy that's scaring you, you don't want to say no to work. And so I was saying no to work all the time. People come in and go, hey, can you get this done? And I'm like, yeah, in 2 weeks. And they're like, 2 weeks? I'm like, okay, I'll go try somewhere else. And you're like, man, I mean, I'm happy I have work to do, but also would like to be nice to say, yes, bring us more work. So I started doing that. Okay. Wednesday Store says the best battery amp. So I'll give you my favorites. That doesn't mean they're the best. Okay. So my buddy Larry has the New X one. It's a little battery powered amp that has a wireless unit. He loves it. I liked it. It's fine. So I'm just letting you know. I mean, he's got a Grammy, so he's probably not wrong. The reason I'm going to tell you that is he likes that one, even though it's less expensive than the ones I'm going to tell you I like. So I want you to at least have that to weigh in on. Me, I really like, for at least expensive battery powered amp, like if you're looking for like the lowest price battery power amp, I would say it's the Black Star Fly. That one, I think there's probably $79 now. Who knows? I haven't checked with inflation. Maybe they're $89, but still sub $100. When I bought my first one, I think they were $59. To this day, I think it's a great sounding amp. For that price point, still one of my favorite sounding for that price point. Me personally, again, it's my favorite. Then I would say at $99 to $120, my next favorite battery power amp is going to be the Spark Go. Funny is, I just want you to be aware, I don't think the Spark Go sounds as good as as the Black Star Fly. I think if I sat them side by side, I haven't, but I feel so confident what I'm about to tell you. If I sat them side by side and plugged guitar into them, I would pick the Black Star Fly for tone. It just has a bigger box for the speaker and it sounds fuller and better. But the Spark Go has a Bluetooth, so you can Bluetooth your phone to it, which is great. And it has a lot more settings and more effects, and it sounds really amazing if you're going to use headphones because it's got a headphone. I do not use headphones, so I just want you to know, for those of you who are like mentioning headphone amps, I just don't use headphones, so it's not going to. I can't suggest that, but a lot of you have great suggestions for headphone amps. Then I would say my next favorite battery-powered amp is the Spark Mini, which sounds way better than the Spark Go and is relatively inexpensive. At least I want to think it is. Let's look at the Spark Go Mini. The Spark Mini is $229. Okay, so I think, in my personal opinion, for $229, and especially if you wait, these Spark, they're like the stock market. Like, I just want to warn you guys, like, if you're buying Spark at full price, don't fall for that crap ever. I do all the time on accident. Spark is constantly blowing them out. I don't know what their business model is, but it's constantly, if you buy a Spark at whatever the regular price is, just trust me, the second you do, like literally the second you do it, it's going to be on sale the next week. So I would look for a deal on Spark. I don't know why Spark loves that. I think that's one of the worst optics things that they do is they're constantly blowing their stuff out and then, but anyway, so get the deal. Spark Mini, I think, is probably my favorite sounding battery powered amp. I won't want to say period, but I'm just saying it's favorite. That's not $500 or more. Okay. Then once you go breaking $500, I like the Yamaha THR 30 2. It's the 30 and 2, not 32, but 30 dose. And I have that and the wireless unit for it, which the wireless unit now kicks it up to $600 because it's like another $150. $600. It's ridiculously priced for what it is. I absolutely love it. No questions asked. If I only had one practice amp, that's my practice amp. And everybody's going to have a different opinion of that. I'm just going to tell you why my opinion is this. It depends on your goal for mini, meaning small amps, battery powered. My goal is clean tone. I play mostly clean. I do not play mostly distorted. And then when I do play distorted, I play with a little bit of breakup. And those unfortunately tend to be not where a lot of the smaller amps sound really good. They sound good with a lot of distortion and delay, and they just sound really good at low volumes, and it's all mushed up and sounds good. And to me, that's where I lose it a little bit. And so I don't know why, but the Yamaha one just on the clean mode, and then I have a mode with like a little bit of, it's like a clean but a little bit of breakup with a little bit of reverb. I don't even use delay. It just sounds great. And on the Spark, the magic for me is you set it on the floor. It's great on a desktop, but I put it right in the floor, right in front of me, like right at my feet. And it just sounds great. So those are my favorite battery powered ones. There's a lot of other great ones out there. I would highly, suggest you look and then use your budget. Those are just my favorites. None of those I would say are the best. Local Christian rock guitarist, that's a long name, says, no pig nose? I had a pig nose. Are you kidding? I couldn't see the movie Rock. I couldn't see the movie Crossroads and not have a pig nose. Man, I tried to make myself love the pig nose so much. Do you know, I never, I even did the wah-wah trick. If you guys don't know what the pig nose is, it opens up like a cabinet, like a, and you can open up and have an open box sound. And you can close it, have a closed box. And then if your friend moves it, it makes a wah sound. I had my friend doing it. Like, look, it's like a wah. Like, this is me convincing my friend that it's cool. Like, do the wah, look. And I played chords and he wah'd it, the cabinet. And I'm like, it's good, huh? And he's like, this sounds like dog crap. And I'm like, no, it's good. And I'm like, don't you mean pig crap? Anyways, I go, no, it's good. It has a pig's nose, a chrome nose. And Ralph Macchio he had it. It was amazing. And it was not amazing. I'm sure it was good at the time. But the problem with things like products like that is I did not discover the pig nose when it was probably the best sounding portable amp that you could have. And I think at some point, I'm sure the pig nose was the best sounding portable amp you can have. And I'm not saying, it's been too long since I've heard it to say it's not a horrible amp or it's a good amp. I don't remember. I just remember trying to like it and never getting there. That would be the same experience I had with the little Marshall mini stack that we all had, and you stick it on your belt and walk around the house playing guitars that sound like farts, going, this sounds good. Comes like it's not a ham radio sound at all, I promise. And I just, you just never could enjoy the sound. So, BCH Guitar says the cigarette pack amp. That's the Zinke amps. So if you guys don't know what the cigarette pack amp is, he's got to be still making them. Zinke amp. Hold on a second. And let me show you what they look like now. They're called Smoky amps. Here's a website. We'll share them. I'll give you the lowdown. These are actually, oh my God, they're $50 now. I remember when they were $25. So this is a Smoky amp. I believe Smoky is still owned by, I don't know. Oh no, yeah, Bruce Zinke. Yeah. So if you guys don't know who Bruce Zinke is, first of all, he had Zinke amps. Let's start there. And for a short time, I believe he either owned Supro, or he was making Supro. He was definitely making Supro, but I think he owned it. But more importantly, what most people know Bruce Zinke for is he designed amps for Fender, including the Pro Sonic, which is a very coveted and very loved Fender amp that essentially was a Fender amp that had like a Soldano gain on it. So they had a 210 combo with reverb and then a head that didn't have reverb, but it was like, it's high gain. If you've never played the Pro Sonic, the Supersonic, came afterwards, but the Pro Sonic was first. That was Bruce Zinke. So he's definitely well respected. But amongst other things, he used to make this thing called the Smoky. Let me show you too. This is what you can get now. It's a plastic case. It's a little speaker. You plug your guitar into it, and then you get the speaker. And if you turn the guitar full force, you get distortion. And if you back off the volume, you get clean. When I say distortion, it's mild. And then there's a second jack here, and that's an output, and you can run it into a cabinet. This would power a 412 cabinet off a 9-volt battery, or any cabinet, to be honest, any ohms, any cabinet. Or you could run it into input of a amp and then run it as like a fuzz box into an amp. Now, originally the Smokies looked like this. In fact, my father-in-law not only has one, he has the one I sold him because I used to carry these in my store because Zinke would sell them to us. But hold on, let me go. Let me show. It's funny. This was okay. So originally, they look like this. Or at least I'm finding screenshots on the internet like this. So originally they were in a pack of cigarettes, right? That's okay. So let me show another one. Hold on. Oh, look, some Pall Malls. So here's one on the eBays, and it's $99. So this is an actual pack of cigarettes. So you would buy these from Bruce, and it was literally a package of cigarettes, and he built the amp into the package of cigarettes, including the 9-volt battery. You used to open the top of the cigarettes to get the battery out. And he told me that he got a cease and desist from the tobacco industry, which is not someone you want to get a cease and desist from. I've probably told this exact story before because I feel like I'm having deja vu. So anyways, yeah, so they stopped him from using cigarette packs anymore. And then so he started putting them in a plastic casing, but that's the Smoky amp. And so he says, why? Because it's funny. It's just funny, right? I mean, it's like you had an amp. I sold them. We would buy them and like at 26 or 2 dozen at a time. And we would sell them like candy. That when they were cigarette packs, when they went to the plastic amps, we stopped selling a lot less. People would just come in your store and they go, "What's that?" And they go, "It's a pack of cigarettes turned into an amp." And they're like, "That's hilarious." I don't know why it's hilarious. We just thought it was funny. And then they did it. And then he stopped. For a while, I believe if you sent him a pack of cigarettes, he would put the amp in it and send it back to you. I think I heard that story once, but I don't know if that's true. And I definitely don't think he does that anymore. I think he's done with that stuff. So yeah, it's funny. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Let's do,
Now it's time for Guitar of the Week.
So let's do Guitar of the Week. And what are we going to do? Today's guitar. So here's an interesting thing that happened. A company reached out to me and asked me if they could send a guitar out. And I thought it would be a perfect guitar to show on Guitar of the Week. So what's funny about Guitar of the Week is usually I bring out a guitar that's like got a little history with me or something that I've owned or something I think it's cool. But when we started doing this, we thought, wouldn't it be cool at some point when we do videos, if there's not a reason to do a whole deep dive on something, maybe we'll just talk about it on this channel or on the show. So let's talk about it. Here's what it is. First of all, we have a company that we've talked about on this channel before, which is Shiji. Now, what's interesting is I was calling them Shiji, and apparently I was saying it wrong because, well, I'll just be honest, because I watched another YouTuber say it. Actually, I watched 5 other people on YouTube say Shiji, and then I said Shiji, and then the owner's like, by the way, it's Shiji. So Shiji is a company, if you've seen, you guys have seen it because I've done videos in the past and other channels have done it too. Shiji is a small company in China that makes high-end guitars, and I actually told him, like, I want this guitar as a discussion point because this is what I like to talk about with certain guitars. As you guys know, I have a lot of opinions about certain things, and like a lot of us do. And one of the opinions I have is that, sometimes I think when they build guitars, overseas, they kind of rig the system. What I mean by that is, some of the bigger manufacturers, they essentially go, yeah, well, hey, build us a guitar. They go to an overseas manufacturer and they go, build us a guitar and make it not as good as the USA one. And then we'll sell it for less money. And although I understand that's to hit a price point and stuff, there was a long time where a lot of people in this industry said, oh, well, they can't make a good guitar overseas. Or they can't make a good guitar there. Only good guitars are in these places. It's only in USA or Japan or Germany or, and I always was curious about that because, I'm like, why is that the case? That doesn't make any sense to me. And so obviously we know Eastman guitars, which are high quality guitars, and we've talked about them on the channel. So Shiji, by the way, spelling is, what is the spelling on it? Here, look at the headstock. Let me show you the headstock. Without my clip-on tuner. There you go. In fact, we'll go to their website. Let's do that. Let's do this. Here we go. So this is, it's Shige, Shiji, you can, right? And this is the guitar we're looking at, is the LPV8. Now, this guitar is $1,400, and that's what I found was interesting about it because it's expensive. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to say, which is fine, I'm not here to sell it to you, I'm just here to talk about it. If you're going to say, hey, man, I can get an Epiphone for $500, or hey, I can get a guitar, Les Paul made in China for $200. This is true. But the question is, how good can you make a Les Paul copy? How good can it make a guitar overseas? And if you've watched any videos of Shiji before, you know that they make really good guitars. So this guitar, the one thing I don't know is I had a question myself, and I don't think it says what the frets are made out of. I don't know if they're stainless steel or not. It doesn't say on their website. They feel really shiny to me, but I can't tell. It just says 22 jumbo, large frets, fret size, but not fret material. So, okay, so let's talk about let's talk about a couple things, and then I'll show you. So this guitar in particular, let me get back. Let's go to the screen. This one comes with Seymour Duncan 59s. That's a 59 set, and it has a Goto bridge. This has locking tuners. They look like the Goto. They say made in Japan. So they have locking keys that are made in Japan. They're vintage style, you can see here, like so. Mahogany neck, mahogany body. This one's kind of hefty. I'd say 8.5 to 9 pounds. Not quite, about almost 9 pounds, just shallow of 9 pounds. It has a maple cap underneath here. It's not a flame cap because obviously they painted it, but they do have a flame top version. If you look here, I'll show you. They have a honey lemon flame and a honey lemon honey lemon and honey lemon flame. And they look exactly the same. Oh, it's because it doesn't change when you click the tabs. Nice. Okay. Bone nut, which is cool. And then it has passive volume tone. No coil splitting, by the way. 19-inch maple top. Oh, sorry, 19 millimeter. 19 millimeter maple top. 12-inch radius fretboard. Nut width is 43 millimeters. Neck angle is 14 degrees, and it's a C carve. This definitely feels like the Gibson C carve that's not the big 59 carve, so it's not as chunky. And then it has plastic binding around the body. And of course, the gold on this looks really good. They did a really good job. This is a poly finish. They don't say, but I mean, I could just tell it's polyurethane finish. Light, I love this. It's got like the Gibson Modern. See how they did the carve here? They just carved it, just not as extreme as the Gibson Modern. So that's kind of cool, a little modernizing it. So let's, and it comes with a case. I'll show you all the case and the case candy too. And then we'll discuss it. And this, again, I'm looking more for a discussion topic than so much an outright review of the guitar. Let me situate my seat real quick. Let's turn on the volume on the guitar. Okay, switch cameras a little bit. All right. Okay, so I know you're probably like, what am I playing through? I'm actually playing through something you probably don't know. So let me tell you, for pedals, I'm not running any pedals yet, but I will be using a overdrive pedal and a delay. The amp I'm running is the PR12 by Morgan Amps. It's essentially a Princeton with a 12-inch greenback Celestion. I have it mic'd up with a Sennheiser 6 E60. What the heck is it? I'll tell you in a second. Let me look it back up. I should know it by heart, but I'm like, I don't know which one I grabbed. So let's go back to the guitar, and we'll start with the neck pickup. We'll play some cleans and turn that off. We'll play some, and then we'll just let me move around the pickups a little bit. So start with the neck. Okay, we'll go to the middle position. Okay, we'll do the bridge. Okay, now what I want to do is I'll just turn on some overdrive and delay. And then we'll play a little drum track to that too. So here we go. So let's switch cameras, and we'll talk about the guitar again, just to give you some sound clips of it, so we have reference of it. I gotta tell you first, I'm most impressed, of course, with the Seymour Duncan pickups. I've always loved the 59 set. I kind of like a guitar like this really illustrates how good I don't want to call it run-of-the-mill. That's not a nice thing to say, but it kind of run-of-the-mill 59 Seymour Duncan set. Just throw it on a guitar, and that a lot of that tone was definitely those pickups just sounded good. Okay, the guitar though, where the guitar comes into play is not so much how much it sounds; it's just how it feels, and it feels. You know what it feels like to me? It feels like an ESP. It's got that very like ESP polished feel to it. It doesn't feel. It looks very Gibson. It feels very ESP, very Edwards kind of thing. And I think the point is like sometimes, we discuss sometimes like what stuff worth, is a guitar worth $1,500? Is it worth $2,000? Is it worth $200? It's nice it's just to see that, especially Shy G, that over the years, I've tried a ton of the guitars. They had the guitars they have that are like Strat style guitars. They have Telly style. And then they have like the modern, like the Sir modern, a lot of Sir vibe guitars, just really good quality feeling stuff. So it seems like they're keeping with that tradition. If you don't mind, let me show you what came with the guitar. Okay. If I don't drop things. Okay, so I wasn't prepared, I don't think. So the first thing that you get is a nice case. Now this case is very, and I mean very, custom shop Gibson look. So if you guys have seen or own a Gibson custom shop, this one's darker than that, but if you can't tell, this case is definitely vibed. They even put the nice Shy G logo right here. It's not a medallion like you would see on the Gibson, but the case is very, and they didn't do the pink inside, but it's gray. But it's a nice quality case. It feels exactly like a Gibson custom shop case. So obviously that's what they're going for. What was really cool is the extra stuff. So, dropping cases. So a cool option I thought was cool for fun was, so it came with the typical cream switch tip, but also, look, it's like it has accessories. It also came with the vintage style switch tip, which is, I don't know what you'd call this. I'm sure Trogley knows. I never really asked. To me, it always looked like burnt plastic. It's the oranger look that you see like on the custom shops. So for those that like that, they match that color pretty good to the custom shop ones. So you have both switch tips you get to choose, which is only funny because, my Gibson custom shops, they came with the darker one. I would have preferred somebody said aged. Sure, aged. I'd prefer if they came with both so I could pick. Then it came with a pick that has their branding. You have the adjustment tool, which is identical to the one Gibson gives you, it looks like. And then you get a custom. This would be cooler if it was shaped like a Les Paul, because it matches the guitar. But so you get a pick caddy, so to speak. It's a wooden roasted maple pick tray for your picks. So you can put this on top of your amp and throw my tuner and stuff. Hey, you can throw that other switch tip in there and all this stuff, and you put all your stuff in there. So a nice amount of accessories. I didn't look. I don't think it comes with certificates. Oh, there's more. So it comes with a key to the case, and then you get a printout. Oh, and this is nice. So not a fancy certificate though, but at least it comes with paperwork. And it's a sheet. So let's see what it says on here, because it has a lot more detailed information on their website. It's got the C-carve. The frets are nickel, 2.7 millimeter nickel frets. The locking tuners are marked as Shai-G locking tuners. And then the Goto GE10 3B bridge. And there's, D'Addario 10 to 46s. African mahogany wood for the neck and the body. Two-piece African mahogany two-piece African mahogany for the body, and African mahogany is just slided for the neck. The scale length is 24.6 inch neck. And the serial number, which is also really cool, is handwritten on the back. So they handwrite it right here on the back, kind of like how PRS does, but it's underneath the finish. I would say it's executed beautifully. Looking at the guitar, I purposely did not spend a lot of time with the guitar. I opened it to make sure it was fine, because I didn't want to open a guitar for you guys and be like, oh, it's broken. So here's what's interesting about the guitar that I want to talk about, instead of like a review of like a deep dive, so to speak, just more of a reaction. Playing the guitar, feeling the guitar, it feels nice. It feels expensive. It feels quality. I don't know why it has to feel expensive. It just feels quality. It doesn't signal me. There are some things, obviously, because it's, it looks like a copy of a Gibson. So the headstock's got that very copy Gibson vibe, right? And, so those are the tails, but nothing of the quality seems to flag me as being like, oh no, is this a knockoff cheap import? So it feels really good. I think the really quality thing is how nice the frets feel. They're really polished. In fact, so polished, I thought like I said, they might be stainless steel because they were really polished. So it's really cool. So I want to say first, thanks for Shai-G for sending the guitar out so we could do this. When we originally started doing Guitar of the Week, we thought about this going, might be a really cool thing to like highlight smaller companies or companies that don't really, the way we do the deep dives, either it has to have a draw. In other words, if I'm putting 3 days of work or 2 days into work into making content, it's got to draw enough of you interest from you guys to watch it. That's what pays for the video, or they have to co-sponsor or sponsor it somehow so we can actually get, justify this work. And a lot of times we're dealing with some smaller companies. They just can't afford that to do it that way. And so we were like, well, what about highlighting, some builders on the Guitar of the Week? Now, this is the funny part, and this is why it's mentioning for Shai-G. Shai-G is the first company to take us up on the offer. No other companies have been interested in doing anything on the Guitar of the Week as a highlight. We've come up with we've tried different angles, like what if we charge them a small fee? What if we, don't charge them anything? What if we, whatever, right? Just figuring out what it is that will appeal to them to make them want to highlight. And so far, nobody's interested. So I want to thank Shai-G for being the first one. That was really fun to share with you guys. Let me know if you guys like it. Like, as Guitar of the Week, I don't want to change Guitar of the Week from what it is. Primarily is just going through some guitars that I like. But also, just the sheer volume, I'm not going to have enough guitars to keep doing Guitar of the Week forever. It's not going to make sense. So we could keep pulling guitars, or we could do this like highlights of, smaller builders or unique builders, or when I say smaller, I mean, not the big mainstream guys. So there's your options. If you're a company, you're welcome to reach out to us and talk to us about it. Like I said, we floated ideas. Just be willing to work with us. I'll be upfront. Shaiji didn't pay anything. We were just so shocked. They finally said yes. We were like, okay, do it. So, whatever. The weight, Leland. I said the weight. This is actually it's not quite 9 pounds, but it's right under 9 pounds. So it's not weight relieved in any way. So it's not a light guitar. That's one thing I'm like, I love the lighter guitars, but it's not. It's definitely, I would say, if you get one, you're expect to be about 9 pounds. Keep in mind though, the Gibsons can get about 10 pounds. So 9 pounds is not light, but not super heavy by any means. And then also the great thing about this format is you guys can ask any questions about this guitar if you guys are curious about it. So, like I said, it's interesting. What's nice about them, and I've worked with them over the years as a company, they are a very small company. It's a small group of builders. They actually show you, so you guys know, the thing about Shaiji that I like is if you do some searching online, you can actually see their shop and them building guitars. They actually show themselves building the guitars, which is very not common for Chinese manufacturers to show anything. For whatever reason, you guys, everybody's going to throw their opinions out there, which is fine. I don't have any concise, specific information to tell you like, oh, let me tell you why they're not doing it. You can come up with all kinds of theories why. I only like to talk in what I know, and I just don't know why they don't. But these are one of the few companies that I've seen where they literally will show you. I've seen online, a Shaiji guitar built from start to finish on their videos. So you can find them and watch them. So there you go. Okay, let's go to another subject. I'll drink some water. We have Clan of House Cats says, is it unwise to keep a guitar with the neck that hurts your index finger or other fingers after playing if you really like the guitar? ? Sure, I understand that. I'm going to say no. And I'll give you that answer based on this. I had a bunch of guitars in my life where I loved them and wanted them so badly. Either the way they looked or just it was like this, like something I aspired to own. And then getting it, a couple guitars come to mind. I had a PRS Custom 22 that had this amazing finish on it. I don't mean a wood finish. It was painted, just a beautiful painted. My buddy Matt still owns it. And that's who I sold it to. And it was just this amazing looking PRS that was so cool. And the neck, for whatever reason, caused my hand to hurt after playing, just playing it for a little while. It was weird. It wasn't too thick. It wasn't too thin. Just something about the shape, something threw my hand off. And I would get the soreness that I get sometimes, in your tendons. And I had to let it go. I had a Sir Telly, same thing. Just the neck for some reason, I'd pick it up, I'd play it. And just after playing a little bit, I had a Jackson V. One of the guitars I don't own is a V, and I've told you guys I'd love to own a V. And I had a Jackson V, and the same thing. Just for some reason, it just was uncomfortable to play, and no, it's just not worth it. Comfort. To me, comfort is everything. The more I will play a guitar that I don't like the way it sounds for comfort every day without any exceptions. I will force myself to like the way it sounds if I have to, but I cannot force myself to like the way it plays. I just can't. The only suggestion I have that's contradictory to that is definitely put your time into it. You won't hurt yourself in the long term. I don't believe so. Playing it for a period of a couple weeks. So maybe give time to make sure that it's not an adjustment you need to make, because I have played guitars where, look, I started out because I didn't know any better playing guitar, wanting these guitars with the super thin necks and the shredders, shredder guitars, even though I'm not a shredder by any means. And I really don't even enjoy soloing. I like playing the rhythm side. If I'm in a band, I only want to play the rhythm part. And so to me, that guitar was those guitars were great, but those guitars were not very conducive to what I was doing. And then once I played a neck that actually was conducive to playing chords more than solos, I was just like, wow, yeah, why didn't I take to this faster? So I would say, don't play a guitar that makes your hands hurt. And I know I know it hurts, man. I know it sucks. I mean, not physically hurts. I know what it's like, because like you said, you love the guitar. I've had a guitar where the sound is great and just not, perfect example. I just said it, right? That heritage right here that I'm pointing at it sounds better than my Gibsons. There's no comparison when I A/B them that I like the way this sounds. And I like the way it looks. It's just the neck when I play it, just because it's a little thicker, I just find myself like I can only play it for about 30 minutes to an hour before I start like not enjoying the feel of it, because it's just a little on the thicker side for me. And so I switch over. Now, if you're so lucky in life, as I've been to be, where you can have a bunch of guitars and it doesn't really matter, I tend to have a few guitars I really like playing, and I do currently own a couple guitars that I could say that, I don't love the way they feel, but I love the way they look, and it doesn't hurt me to have them laying around and play them every once in a while. Hero Glop says, hey, can we expect a comparison of the Princeton and the Morgan PR12? The Morgan amp, which I'm glad to play today. So I got the Morgan PR12 combo. I was really conflicted whether or not I wanted the head or the combo. But deep down, I was like, I like combos more than heads. And it's if you watch my channel, you would go, that's not true, because you have more heads than combos. That's because, I have a lot of amps because of the YouTube channel, but I generally like to play through like it's just a combo amp. Just keep it simple. One thing, grab it. And but heads are way more convenient for me because I have cabinets and I can just put them on cabinets. And I've been wanting a Morgan PR12 for so long. But the problem was, when I say I wanted it for so long, it wasn't based on how it sounds. I never heard one. How I even found out about it was in 2020, January of 2020, I was in California. I interviewed Steve Vai and Mike Saldano. I did this in a day. I was at a trip. I did a trip. I interviewed Mike Saldano. Then I did Steve Vai. And that night, I met Joe Morgan from Morgan Amps and a couple of the people from Bad Amps. I'm not going to say any names because I'll tell you why. And anyways, we met and we had a good time that day. And they said, hey, we're going across the street to this bar. Want to go? And I said, I went. That is the most drunk I've ever been in my life. I've never been anything close to that before, and never anything close to that since. We drank. All I know is it was on like Hollywood Boulevard. Like we were down like in Hollywood Boulevard. We were at a bar, and then we were at a bar so late that they kicked us out. And I'm pretty sure we went to another bar, because I know we went to another bar. And just so you know, I was drinking beer all night. They were drinking liquor. And we drank so much. I even was wondering how, all as the night got, it was like till like 4 a.m. kind of thing. I don't know. It was late. It was super late. I have no idea what the time was. It was to the point where you couldn't be out anymore. And then I walked to my hotel room, because my hotel room was like there. We were on that street. I walked. I remember being able to remember walking there and then going to my hotel room, going to sleep, and realizing I had to wake up the next day and go back to work. And Joe Morgan was hilarious. I remember laughing so hard that night. And I made a comment to him that night. I remember saying to him, yeah, I need to check out a Morgan amp. I know you do like an amazing AC amp, like a Vox style amp. And I said, and this is embarrassing to me, I said, I really like Princeton's. And he goes, well, I make a Princeton. I make the PR12. It's basically a Princeton. It's just a modified, better Princeton, and I was like, oh, I didn't know. And so what happened was I told myself one day I'll buy one. And right now, as you guys know, the market is slow. And if you look at anything, you're gonna get an offer. And I got a ridiculous offer for a PR12 that I thought, well, based on the fact that I like Joe and it's supposed to be a Princeton, I'm going to pull the trigger and do it. And so I bought the amp, got it. I absolutely love it. Do I love it more than my Princeton? I think so, but I'm in honeymoon mode, so don't believe me. Don't trust me. I will tell you this, and this isn't going to help a lot of people because these are expensive amps. It's a very expensive amp. But I will tell you, behind me what you're looking at behind me is a Princeton 64 reissue. This is the 64. If you guys not familiar with how it works, I have a 68. 68 reissue is a silver face. The 65 is a reissue of Princeton. The 64 is a hand-wired Princeton. The 64 Princeton, which I bought used, and I bought used for, think of this, I bought that amp used for more than I bought this brand new Morgan PR12. So that tells you something. So comparing the hand-wired Princeton to the Morgan, I would prefer the Morgan right now. If I had to get rid of one, I would get rid of the Princeton and keep the Morgan of the hand-wired. Because of the, I think I prefer it. But regardless of that, if like it was a price thing, the fact that the Morgan is the fact that I'm even saying is as good as that and it's less expensive, I actually believe it's probably a little better in some ways and less expensive. So that's my insights. Will I do a video? I absolutely plan to do a video, of course. I really like to do a video. Why? Because I would really have liked to had a video when I did it. If there was a good video out there, I watched a ton of people's videos, but a lot of them would only compare it to the Josh Smith version. So Josh Smith, the blues player, who's amazing, by the way, has a PR12, his own signature PR12 with Morgan, where it has a boost built into it. And a lot of people compared the two. And just to be up front, that they sent me the deal on, you know who it was? I'll tell you who it was. In case you're interested in one yourself. So as I get them, because it's you'll know who it is because it's Pro Audio Star out in New York. So Pro Audio Star sent me a smoking deal offer, and I was like, oh, let's do it. That's a good deal. But I'd be remiss to say, if I didn't say this, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you guys this. Without a doubt, though, there are smoking deals on PR12s used right now. I found PR12s a lot even cheaper than the smoking deal Pro Audio Star sent me. But to me, it's like having it brand new and knowing it's brand new and it was a good deal. I just went with that versus taking the chance on used. I don't have a problem used, but you still have to take a chance. Kane says, Ingle? Yes. Are you asking me about the Ingle? Is that your question? Do I still have the Ingle? The answer is yes. I have the Ingle Steve Morse amp. It's right there. That's out of view, but it's still my high gain little amp that I use for sure. I'm selling my Ingle Fireball 25. It's on my Reverb page. I love it, but I just don't see the point. I literally use the Steve Morse for all high gain. Just use that. So, again, I've sold so many amps off recently, I'm trying to just pare down just to the few amps that I really, really feel like are more unique to each other. So yes, to answer the question again, will the Morgan replace something? Most likely. If it stays, it's replacing something. Okay. Old Man Fran says, hey, Phil, I think a lot of players buy up due to peer pressure. Peer pressure? Who the hell are you hanging out with? Hey, man, only sissies don't buy expensive guitars. Like, I get peer pressure? I'm giving you crap. Let me finish your comment, and then we'll get into it. It says, if I'm a new player happy with my entry-level guitar, but I don't know what I don't know, what would be a valid reason to upgrade? Okay. So let's take this at face value. So I understand what you're saying, peer pressure. First of all, obviously the peer pressure is real in the concept of, it's like, look, I when I was young and I started playing in bands, that was the first peer pressure you feel is the whole, hey, if you don't have professional gear. Hell, remember the ads? The ads be like, looking for guitar player, must have pro gear, right? That was like a thing. Like, don't show up with, you had to have professional gear. And, so yeah, I understand that stuff for sure. Look, everybody has to figure out for themselves where the point where it's good enough for you is. Okay. And that's how I did for me. I have a video coming soon that I worked on that is going to talk about this exact topic. So I don't want to double up on this and that. But I had an interesting experience with guitars recently that it's going to kind of clarify what I'm meaning by that. But to get to your point is, the sad truth is there are amps that are like, I'll talk about amps. There are amps that are so good that when you hear them, you go, wow, I know now what I was missing, and I can't go back. There are guitars now that are so good that I've owned, or I currently own, and I played, and they're so good that I'm like, wow, it's so good, I can't go back. Now, all of that said is, if I never experienced the better instrument, the better amplifier, the better pedal, the better guitar, I wouldn't have missed anything. I would be fine. Who cares? Your tone is slightly not as good, But that being said, I have also experienced where I bought stuff that was expensive, and I go, it's good, but it's not much better. And that's where you know to stop. You're like, okay, to me, when I hear the difference of a really nice amplifier, a nice guitar, play a nice guitar, and I compare it to a guitar that's less expensive, and I go, wow, this really sustains more. This does something that I like. Or it has something that I unlocked something for me. I really feel connected to it. This is a good investment in myself, in this, and I'm going to do this. That's you're going to feel fine with that. But I have also felt the experience of trying to convince myself that what's happening is that when it's not. So, to me, that's where custom shop guitars come into. For me, custom shop guitars, as I told you guys, I buy the custom shop guitars and I go, yeah, they're better, but they're just not that much better. I don't feel like I've really unlocked something that I couldn't access without that. And that's just my experience. Amplifiers, though, keep in mind that a lot of it that gets amplifiers in trouble for players is there is truth to the fact that some amps just don't sound great loud, and if you need a loud amp, you need a good amp that sounds loud. But there is also I have the opposite experience now. I like my amps not to be loud, so I'm looking for an amp that sounds amazing at lower volumes, and that is a different requirement. And I've tried to force amps to do that, and they just don't do it really well. So that's why I like amps like Princeton stuff. This thing sounds fantastic at a reasonable volume to me. Where when I plug into a bigger amp, there's just too much going on, and it's too loud or too boomy. Bitmat wants to know, will you get rid of your Black Cat? I sold my Black Cat. Yes, the Jet Black Cat Jet Black. I sold. It went up on my Reverb store about 2 weeks ago, because I have the Mark Sampson era Bad Cat, and even now, not because of his passing. So obviously I sold the Black Cat Jet Black before Mark Sampson passed away. When I was exposed to the Mark Sampson amp and I played that amp, I realized then it was a truly unique amplifier to what I have. And like I said, it's that AC Vox thing that just sounds amazing. And I was like, okay, this is what I need. I need this amp, and it fits perfectly into something I don't have. Again, it's not about like having all the sounds. It's just there's a couple key sounds that I'm really interested in having, and that amp sounds really great to me. The Mark Sampson era Bad Cat is, I think it's one of the best Bad Cats I've ever heard. It's extremely expensive, and if you're so inclined to do that stuff, I plan to. Somebody gave a suggestion, and once I have hearing in both ears again, I'll start working on it. But I have some affordable amps videos that I'm gonna be working on because of that. I mean, there's a lot of practicality to the lower price stuff. Let's see. Okay. Hold on, I want to jump back over. We still haven't, I don't think we got to the core of his question, did we? Did we get, so peer pressure. So to answer your question, yeah, look, the reality is the best thing about, so at the core of the question of peer pressure, in other words, people judging you for what you have. Okay. Look, I can't give you any input that is different than just my experience of this. I wish I had some wise thing to say. I just don't. Here's what I've learned for myself, though. When I know it's right, I don't give a crap what anybody says. that isn't because of your age, and that happens too. You know, the older you get, the less you care about what people think. That's for sure. But regardless of that, I find the more I know this is right for me. This is the right sound. This is the right thing for me. Once I know it, then I don't care what people have to say. And so I don't want to just connect it to an age thing. It really can be as simple as is once you find a sound that you're pleased with, I have a sound that I love to play, and I have friends and they'll go, man, they go, why does it sound so whatever horrible? I'm like, I love this sound. Like, I have no apologies in my tone at all. Just like, I'm not offended. I'm not mad. My love of it is so strong that I just don't care. I'm like, oh, sorry, you don't like it, but this is what I'm going for. This is it for me. This is the sound I like. So I think that's what you think of. That's what I think of when I think of pressure to buy better gear. But always, like I said, there's no FOMO in this. There's no. I told you guys this. I love, look, the Amplified Nation amp's amazing. This is Princeton's amazing. All this stuff's amazing. But Blues Junior with a compression pedal, still as happy as anything else. It's just, the nicer amps just have a little bit more, like a little bit more sustain, a little bit, to me, it's all about the mids frequencies just smoothing out a little bit. But again, the one thing I learned during my journey of trying to figure out what's the magic of this Dumble thing is I figured out, and I said this before, the Dumble thing is really being replicated almost everywhere you go with guitar players and their pedal boards. When a guitar player puts together an elaborate pedal board, this is where I think a lot of people, including Paul Smith, got it is a little confused by it. I used to look at pedal boards, players all assembling a pedal board. They're essentially building the perfect amplifier. That's what they're doing. Some not so much. Some are using a ton of different effects to create different soundscapes and tapestries for their music and style. Sure, of course. But when I see a guitar player and they got 8 overdrives or whatever on their board, they're building the ultimate amplifier. They're figuring things out. They're like, this, if I just had this clean, but I had this overdrive, but if these 3 overdrives stack, then I get this sustain. And so when somebody says, oh man, this one amp does it all, I'm like, yeah, but I would easily be as happy with a couple pedals into a basic amplifier and I'd get that same sound. And the proof in that, by the way, that I think even the most amazing musicians would agree with that statement for the most part is, if you look at them, they do exactly what I just explained. When you look at the best musicians in the world that we covet, you see them on stage with these elaborate rigs, right? But then they go and play somewhere at a small gig or a fly date, and then they just have a couple pedals into whatever backline amp they got, and they pull off their sound. And everybody goes, oh, because the sound is in their hands. Yeah, it's true. There's the technique's in their hands, but it's still, they still have to convey a sound to you, right? Right? The talent is in the chef, but still you have to eat the food they're creating, right? They still have to have some ingredients that get you there, right? And you can tell they've just learned how to find that sound in different pieces of gear. I found the same thing, especially doing tons and tons of videos, is that it's like when you say, I see it all the time as a comment on YouTube channels all the time. They're like, hey, every video of the YouTuber sounds the same. And they're like, yeah, it's because I'm like, yeah, well, they sound the same, not only because they play the same, I play the same. So I'll just pick on me. I play the same. I'm also seeking out the same tone in everything I find. I'm just looking for the best version of that tone in my head. So that's just a thought. Let's see. Okay, then let's go. Keep moving along because we want to end the show with a special little thing. Smelly Cat's Jazz says, what size tubing is used for silencing trim springs? I don't know. I can tell you what I use. I get it at Ace Hardware. I want to say, I don't know, 1/4 inch? Is that a thing? And I don't know. It's funny is you think sadly I just don't know when you measure the tubing, are you measuring the outside diameter or the inside diameter? The tubing I use is definitely like a 1/4 inch inside. so I could put like a guitar cable plug inside of the tubing. Do I have any here? But that's what I buy from Ace Hardware. That's where I get my tubing. I just buy it at Ace Hardware. It's really cheap. I buy like whatever, 8 inches of it or whatever the hell it is, and then I cut it up in pieces, and that's what's in the back of my springs and my guitars. So, in fact, let me grab one. Okay. So here, because at least it is a video. So if you look at the back of this tremolo, you'll see exactly that. This is surgical tubing. And so those of you who are experts out there can help us out. Somebody tell me what you think this is. So this is the surgical tubing I use. There's plastic tubing as well. This is the stuff I ended up liking. You can get it in black as well. But when I went there that day, I went once they had black, and then once they had this stuff that obviously is just the typical color of surgical tubing. So there you go. That's the best way to look at it. So that's the size I use. And then I take a X-Acto knife and I slit it down right at the center. And you can see I cut about 1 inch to 2 inches there. And then you saw how I do it. I just wrap it around the spring. And then once I do that, no sounds. Now, for those of you right now, because there will be, who are flipping out because why would you do that? You love the sound of the springs when they when they make noise. Well, good. I do not. The reason I do not is that the same reason I use something to mute the headstock, because when I play, I sometimes stop abruptly, and when I'm recording, I want it to not ring. So, and I don't want to use a noise gate. So that's why I use that. It's just a way to keep it under control for me. So there you go. Okay. Randy Crook says, hey, I will be picking up a Gretsch Electromatic 5655T tomorrow. Very excited. Second guitar purchase and task of replacing 26 guitars I lost in the house fire. So it's interesting. So the second guitar is a Gretsch. Electromatics are always great. So again, I'm sorry to hear about, the horrible thing that happened to you, but it is interesting to see what you're buying next, each guitar. So you don't have to super chat. Maybe just email me like update and I'll share the updates of what guitar is next. We'll see. How do you build back your 26 guitar collection? That'd be interesting to hear of that and maybe share that information with everybody. PW says, do you prefer Patreon memberships over YouTube memberships because YouTube takes a bigger cut? I'm more interested in giving you my money than YouTube. So Patreon, not only does Patreon give me more, but I'm grandfathered into the very first version of Patreon. I adopted Patreon very early on. And so Patreon takes a silly little amount of money from me, okay? They do not take very much money at all. In fact, if Patreon tells me, like, I think they block 1 or 2 services from me in hopes that, because they tell me that I'm grandfathered in, but they also tell you like, and these 2 services, if you ever want them, I have to hit a button. To give you a reference, like if I do that, it costs me a couple $100 a month because they would take so much of a bigger hit for me. So I just leave it that way. So yeah, Patreon charges a lot less, but also Patreon to me is more conducive to the community environment that I build over on Patreon, which is more interaction with you, the people who care about the channel, and more posts, and I can do other stuff. It's just easier to control. However, some people voiced, so I only kept it solely on Patreon, and then some people voiced that they prefer YouTube. So what we do now, and I'm keep working on it, is I do everything on Patreon, and then I kind of send a version over to the YouTube premium, members. So that's what I've been doing, and so yes, I'm working on that. So yeah, but yeah, it's hard to do 2 platforms. Yes, YouTube takes more money, but it's also not so much about that. It's just I get to do a lot less with the YouTube side than I can with the Patreon side. YouTube, I don't mind that they take more money. I just wish they would give me as much stuff as Patreon gives me, and I wish Patreon would give me more too to interact with. Okay, let's go to Phil. That's me. Phil says, hey, I have a PRS Custom 24 on the G string. Frets 1 and 2 are sharp, but the rest of the neck are okay. What is causing this? How can I fix it? Great show. I mean, that's really hard to specifically hit off of just, you telling me what it is. 1 and 2 are sharp, but the rest are okay. It's on the G string. So obviously you hit open G, your intonation's right, then the first fret, then your second fret's off, then your third. I don't know. I'm sure. I don't know if I've actually had to deal with that particular one issue. What I'm doing now, Phil, is I'm actually copying and pasting this into my little pad. I have a pad. Even which I think I do really well with not seeing stuff visually, even though I'm a visual learner, I kind of need to work this out. So I think on this one, I copy pasted it just now so I can take a guitar and replicate the problem and see. I have some theories, but I don't want to just shoot guesses. And that's all I got for you is just guesses of why I think it's doing that on the G string. And for the fun of it, just so I don't leave it hanging, my first guess is I'm thinking something's wrong with the nut. And the reason is that I'm thinking that maybe just when the way the nut's cut, when you push the first fret, you're sharp, and the second fret, and then as the distance gets away, it's fixing itself. I can see that because you're pushing everything sharp. I mean, the good news is sharp is the right way. If it was going flat, that would be weird. So sharp is the problem. Without even seeing it, my thought is there's something wrong with the nut slot. Something. That's where I would start. But I will take a deeper look. Arna says, hey, Phil, hope you feel better. Do you have any recommendations? Oh, by the way, thank you for saying that. By the way, I had this dream today. I was like, what if I'm on the show and my ears open up? My ear opens up and I can hear during the show, and it didn't happen. It says, do you have any recommendations for adding a poker chip to a Heritage H530? I assume your H150 is similar. There is no room. Yes. So I, like you, by the way, some people are like, what? I hate that. But me, like you, I kind of wish the guitar had a poker chip, little plastic ring. The answer is yes. I'll tell you what I'll do for you. I want to do it to my guitar, so I'm going to do it to my guitar. I'll film it, and then I'll have it for you. Without looking at it, I haven't looked at it. I haven't even started the process. I just know that I can't take the typical poker chip and stick it in there because the way they inset the three-way switch into the Heritage, it's too low, and it's the base is too thick, and it's the height is too low. So I'll work it out. I have some feeling that it's basically just me drilling out the poker chip hole a lot bigger and then setting it in there somehow. But there's a part of me that believes the only way to really do it is pull that three-way switch out of the Heritage and put a more traditional three-way switch and just put the poker chip in there. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. But either way, we'll discover it. I was on the fence about doing it myself, and now you said you're curious. I might as well do it, film it, and I'll probably make a YouTube short or something. Either way, I'll make something quick, and then I'll have something to post. So again, it'll be interesting. And with the new system, as you know, I don't have to do anything special. I'll just turn on the cameras, and when I do it, I'll just film myself doing it. Rich says, what does Rich say? It says, hey, I'm curious about the Synergy. How do you think Friedman modules compare to your real Friedman amps? So I beat the Friedman stuff that I have to the Friedman modules. Here's the thing about all the Synergy modules that I have when I have compared them to the real things. They are very esque. So like the Friedman is very Friedman-esque, and the Fender is very Fender-esque, and the Soldano is very Soldano-esque. And what I mean by that is, yeah, it sounds like that amp. I've heard people, I watch reviews where they say it sounds exactly like that. I would never say that. I didn't think they sounded exactly like any of the actual amps they were replicating. But they were esque, close, very close. And, it's one of those utility kind of things. Like, do I prefer the real Friedman to the Friedman Synergy module? Yes. Do I prefer the real Soldano to the Soldano module? Yes. Do I feel the real Fender to the Fender? Yes. Like the angle to angle? Yes. PV 5150 to the, yes. I prefer the real amp every time to the module. No exceptions. No even close, like, no, they're really close. No, I prefer the real thing every time. But utility-wise, I can't put all those amps in a 1 amp. So, and they are very good facsimiles or whatever you want to call them of the real thing. So in other words, what's funny, I had this exact talk with another YouTube channel that I highly respect, way better channel than me, talent-wise, and we were talking about synergy, and I said this to him, and he said, yes. So I feel like this is good advice for this situation. I said, we were both talking about the new Synergy amp, the new 20. I don't have the new 20. I haven't tried it. I bought the 30. So when this 20 was coming out, I wanted a smaller version, so I bought the 30. They don't make that one anymore, but that's what I got my hands on. And then, of course, I have the 50 watt. So I said to him, I said, do you like the Synergy as much as the real amps? And he goes, not really. And I said, yeah, me neither. I said, I like them a lot. I don't like them as much or more than any of the real amps they're copying. And he said, yes, I agree. I said, now, this is what I said. I said, but when I record them, they sound exactly the same. So I don't know how to translate that to a viewer. And he says, yes, that's exactly the problem. I go, that is the problem. In the room, if you were sitting here with me, I don't know why I forgot your sign on. I apologize. Let's see. Rich, right? Rich, if you were sitting with here, I guarantee you that if I plugged into the Soldano module Synergy and plugged in a Soldano amp and we A-B'd them, you would go, oh man, Phil, the Soldano is just a little fuller, a little bit more, just a little bit something more. And I go, yes. And if we put mics in the room and we put that on YouTube, everybody would go, they sound exactly the same, guys. I don't know what you're talking about. And you'd sound like a lunatic going, no, they're different. And they're like, I don't think they're different. So the Synergies record almost exactly like the real amps. In other words, what I'm trying to say is whatever's happening that they're missing, whatever little last element that Synergy is missing to make them exactly like the amps, doesn't translate to it would not translate to an audience. It will not translate in a recording. It will only be you. And then you have to decide if that's what really matters to you. Is like, for me, having a Soldano with a Fender in 1 amp is so crazy. I don't know how to go, oh, the Soldano is still way better. I'm like, no, having, the module being able to swap out and do stuff is crazy to me. So it's really good. So that's my official answer on the Synergy stuff. Doctor, I don't know, we're just going to call him Doctor again. Says Yamaha THR5 versus THR10 versus PG Spark Mini, Positive Grid Spark Mini. I like the small footprint of the Mini, but hesitate on the amp. It runs entirely from an app, leaning to the THR10 so far. So if you don't like apps, I would definitely go with the Yamaha stuff. That is one of my favorite things of the Yamaha amp series is I don't want to pull up an app. I don't want to dial in some sounds. Now keep in mind, everybody's going to say this and they're right. You can set up the settings in the app on a Spark product like a Mini and never have to do it again. Now keep in mind, that's not entirely true because I once had my original Spark for some reason have an issue so it doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, for the most part, I have not had the issue with the Mini is what I'm trying to say. Is I put the sounds in and they stay there. But there's something about just not wanting to use the app. I would argue, and some people are going to argue too, that's kind of the whole part of the Sparks is that they have the app and all the features that the app brings and that, you should utilize the app. Sure, all that's true, but I just don't like my phone around me when I'm playing guitar. I don't like anything around me. I work for a living off my phone. My phone is work. My phone's near me, work's near me. And, I'm easily distracted back to work. I spend more time scheduling, not work time. I'm pretty much always working and scheduling, not work time. So to that, I would say the THR series for sure, if that's a concern you have. Sound-wise, if you're asking which ones sound better, they're comparable in their sounds. They're different, but comparable. So you wouldn't be upset with either one going, you missed out. But I would say the Yamaha if you want to stay app-free. Inshu 444, 3 4s says, hey, Phil, random topic. What do you think is more similar, a Strat Telly or a Les Paul 335? I mostly play a 335 type. Telly mostly use the neck pickup. So in my opinion, the 335 is a Les Paul. I don't think they sound different at all. I play my 335, and I think my 335 literally sounds like a Les Paul. And I think a lot of what doesn't sound like a Les Paul is visual and mental. It looks more bluesy. It looks more whatever. But essentially, I think a 335 is just a Les Paul. So they sound so similar to me. Let me put it this way. If I recorded my 335 in my Gibson Les Paul, I would expect not to be able to detect which one's different for the most part. So to me, my Strat and Telly are very different in sounding. Very. So I think the 335 and the Les Paul are more alike than the Telly and the Strat are alike. Millhouse Studio says, hey, the Spark Neo headphones are sensational for practice. Many thanks for the years of common sense, boss. Thank you, first of all. And thank you for that stuff. Because like I said, unfortunately, I don't do the especially now. I have no hearing in my right ear. But thank you for that info on the headphone stuff. As you know, I don't do a lot of headphones, so I never know. And I've heard nothing but good things about the new Spark headphone stuff. T-Size says, hey, quick question, Phil. I wanted a gold top Gibson for 15 years, and now I can buy one. But why is the deluxe standard P90 $2,600, but the humbucker costs $2,800? I don't know the real answer. I just know a guess. It's based on sales. So it could be as easy as, they just can't sell the P90s as well, so they lower the price. Wait, is that right? Yeah. Why is the deluxe standard P90 26, but the humbucker 28? I think it's as simple as that. I don't know if it's a real cost thing. I don't think that's actually like it costs $200 less to manufacture or whatever the cost equivalent is that gets it $200 less to the consumer. I think it's essentially that because every manufacturer does this, especially in the guitar industry. They set pricing sometimes based on cost, but sometimes just based on, how do they move units? They're one of the best examples of this, and I've illustrated this before to explain, is that a 3/4 size child's Squire does not cost less to manufacture than a full size Squire. I've had this discussion in very private talks many years ago with the people at Squire. We talked about this, and they're like, a perfect example is that when you think about it, like I said, when you think about it out loud, you're like, oh yeah, I don't know why I never thought of this. You're like, if you think of a 3/4 size Squire Stratocaster, it has 3 full-size single coil pickups. It has a full-size bridge. It has 6 full-size tuning keys. It has essentially a full-size nut. The neck is still a piece of maple with either rosewood or maple fretboard. It's just a few inches shorter. That's it. Okay, so it's a few inches shorter piece of wood. The body is still whatever it is. Maybe it's a 4-piece poplar body, but still, it's still essentially just the same materials, just a little bit smaller. Okay, so you could go, well, you save a little bit on the less paint to paint it and a little bit less wood, for the length and a little bit less wood. But then think about the time. This same time goes in a CNC machine cutting a body is cutting a body. It doesn't really, it's not how much, I understand it's smaller in diameter, but the run time isn't going to be much less. Same with the neck. It doesn't really shorten the neck. The hand time for sanding doesn't really change. The fret, same fret material, same fret time. So if you think about it, when you think of a 3/4 guitar being almost 30-40% less to the consumer than the full-size equivalent, but they're talking about maybe 4% or 5%, not even that cheap. It's not even cheaper. Like they said, it's not even physically cheaper. It's the same cost. They just said, this is their official answer to me. Because so how this came up was I was in a private area vendor and I was talking to the people at Squire and I said, why? Basically, we're talking about 3/4 guitars and I was talking about things that they could offer that I think would be better for students. And they were basically saying like, look, it's almost a loss leader selling 3/4 guitars for us. They cost the same amount as full-size guitars, and yet we have to sell them for almost 30, 40, 50% less because that's what the consumer will pay. So that's what we do it for. And so sometimes it is as simple as that. So I would say that it's very possible that Gibson just charges less because the P90 people won't pay as much or more for a P90 than they will for a humbucker. And I think that's probably the answer. That's my best guess. It's just a guess, but it's my best guess. Mr. S says Fender-ish synergy module versus Fender Princeton versus Morgan Princeton-ish. Thanks. Okay, so the Princeton, in my opinion, is a very unique amplifier. I have the Synergy module T Deluxe, and doesn't matter what cabinet I run it through. Okay, it is very Fendery. In other words, it's got that Fender top end sparkle. It does the Fender thing, but I wouldn't call it a Princeton. So if you're looking for the Fender clean, the vibe, the feel, that compress. What I like about Princetons is they compress really hard. That's the best way I've heard it explained, and that's the way I just regurgitate that explanation is compression. I feel like when you hit a note, it's just really, really instant. The snapback, the tone comes back to you very quickly, and it's soft, but it's still very instant. I guess that's the only way I could put that. I wouldn't call the Synergy, even the Fender modules like that. They're more like the 65 and the Fender Twin, bigger sounding, more open sounding amps, but not so, like say, compressed tight. And then the Fender Princeton versus the Morgan-ish, I think I talked about that earlier. Right now it's going to the Morgan, but how much of that? So here's what I don't know. Okay. I like the Morgan. I haven't spent a whole lot of time with it. I'm very impressed right away. Great. But also keep in mind, here's what's not a fair fight. The Fender Princeton, although it's a hand-wired and this is the most premium Fender currently sells of the Princeton, right? It has a 10-inch Jensen speaker in it, and there's a 12-inch greenback Celestion in the Morgan. So what I'm going to do to officially see what is going on is figure out how much of the Morgan amp and the Fender amp's different and how much is this two speakers. Because I could tell you the Morgan sounds a lot better, but what if it's as simple as, you just put the Princeton through the 12-inch Celestion greenback and it's as good, if not better than the Morgan, and the Morgan won't sound as good as through the 10-inch. So I'll do I have a cable, if you guys haven't seen it a long time ago using videos, I have a special cable I can use to switch when combos to change out the speakers real quick and stuff. I'm going to change the speakers. I'll figure out what of it is the speaker. As we know, a speaker is a huge part of the tone. So the Morgan can just be better because of the speaker. Very possible. Okay. And then we'll finish up with NM112209999. I really am wanting to get into Gretsch guitars. I don't have any yet. I want Helotrons. What are your thoughts on those pickups? I don't know what Helotrons are. So now I have to Google Helotrons. Pickups. Helotron pickups. Helotrons have much lower inductance. Yeah, well, that would be all the Filtertrons are going to have lower inductance. Gretsch Talk forums. Helotron bridge. Okay. I have no experience with these pickups. What models do they put them in? I'm finding them easy. Genuine Gretsch Helotron bridge. So here's what I know about Gretsch pickups from Joe Carducci, who used to run Gretsch back when I was working with Gretsch. Over the years, there was obviously different owners of Gretsch. Okay, so Gretsch was owned for a while by Baldwin pianos. For a moment, Gretsch was owned by Gibson. How hilarious is that? Gibson didn't want it. A little fun fact, if you guys didn't know that, that's actually absolutely true. At one point, Baldwin owned Gretsch, and then Gibson bought Baldwin and was like, yeah, why would we want Gretsch's? We have hollow bodies. We have guitars. I always think today, could you imagine if Gibson owned Gretsch too? Like that's essentially, but okay, whatever. So anyway, and then of course now the current, then Gretsch goes back to Fred Gretsch. I think he's the third, and that's, he owned it. And then now it's still owned by Fred Gretsch and the family, but of course manufactured, shipped and marketed and everything by Fender. So what he told me is that over the years, different owners, different owners of the Gretsch line, different visions, different models. They made so many different things that they just constantly, there's so many different pickups, so many different models that they've done. It's like endless. And that's how I feel about Gretsch. So that's why I'm explaining to you why I'm so like, I don't know, Helotrons. I mean, I'm sure it's a very popular Gretsch pickup. I'm just not familiar with it. I really like, I like the DiMarzio's Filtertrons that he just came out with. As you guys know, I talked about those. They're really good. I really like TV Jones. To me, I don't have a winner there. I really like TV Jones Filtertrons a lot. So I think that's the real, so you guys understand where I'm at with this. The fact that I like the DiMarzios as much as the TV Jones is what the compliment to DiMarzio is because I really like the TV Jones stuff so much. Those are what I tend to have in all my Gretches. So that's where I go. So I'm really single-minded when it comes to Gretsch. I would love to learn more and do more videos about that. Maybe do some more deep dives of those style guitars. So I'll look into that now that you've mentioned it, but I haven't tried a whole lot of stuff. It's one of those things, like, where do you start? So I need to pick a direction and go down that road to try some new stuff. And, as you know, in my pickup collection, I never had any of the Helotrons either. But I can tell now, I can see looking at them. For those that are curious, let's just share them. This is a genuine Gretsch Helotron bridge pickup. So you can see here. So what I don't know is I see the one set of screws. So I don't know pickups. Hello, Gretsch. Pickups are sold. So I don't know if this is a single coil. I just don't know. Is it a humbucker? And then I will definitely be learning about it. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up buying one and taking it apart and looking at it. I know it'll probably get in my head and somewhere over the weekend. So we'll see how that goes. All right. On that note, it's time to button up the show. All you guys, I just want to say thank you not only for hanging out on the Friday show, but also for really supporting the interview with with Gabe, the CEO of Guitar Center. That video was crazy. It did 128,000 views. Guitar World even did an article about the interview. It was a very cool interview. I had a lot of fun. I got an hour with him. That's all I got. Because of the time restraints and stuff. So I was able to, get out some of my thoughts and talk about it. He was very nice to do it. So, I was hoping that what will happen in the future is we'll get another podcast together, maybe a more deeper involved one. I can't tell you anything because I don't know on their side. I'm just going to tell you my thoughts. I thought I'd end up in the show with that discussion. So this is what I'm in with. I'm sure, look, all he knew about me is I said a bunch of crap about them and him on my podcast. So the fact that they invited me to come talk to him was nice. It was a really, really cool thing. But also, you got to understand, I went into it knowing he could be really defensive. So I started, if you notice, I started that podcast with, hey, this is a really cool thing that you guys did here with this mock guitar store. Because I'm like, okay, I'm trying to break ground with you and break bread and then start having discussion. One thing you probably noticed, I don't know, it could have been in my head. He did seem very nice, but I'm sure he was a little defensive of the fact that he was waiting for me to unleash any time with some tirade or crazy thing. So I kept it pretty even and killed, but he was very nice. One thing I thought that's really important, and this is why I'm telling you guys about this, is the fact that they invited me to come out was because they had been paying attention to not only what I've been saying on the podcast, but what you guys have been saying in the comment sections and just getting a vibe of what's going out there. And they're in a situation, look, some companies need to listen. Well, all companies need to listen to their customers, but some companies really need to listen to their customers because it's kind of like, I use this as an analogy. It's not for anything other, just an illustration. I think it was Domino's Pizza. If somebody can correct me in the comments if I'm incorrect, but I think I saw once Domino's Pizza did a commercial saying, "Hey, you spoke and we listened. You said our pizza tastes horrible, so we're making it taste better." I remember some kind of commercial like that. And I remember thinking, how hilarious, right? How that's funny. Now that's marketing, but you still the idea. What I'm trying to say is, the census out there. A lot of people are like, Guitar Center is failing. There's a lot of issues with it. Obviously, if you've been watching this channel, I've been saying that for years. Here are all my issues. And they're listening because I think they realize they got to figure this out. It's got to improve or it's going to die kind of thing. So I want to thank everybody who left comments. I'm pretty sure they're paying attention to those comments. I'm not just saying that. I can tell you a lot of times most companies don't pay attention to any of this stuff we're out there doing on the internet. But I think right now they're paying attention to us and what we're saying. So And I got to tell you right now, no matter what I said to him that day, which I said some stuff off the podcast and on the podcast, and I'm sure he listened to a lot of it. I don't know how much of it, but I'm sure he, I obviously heard me say it, but I mean, how much did he take in of it? I don't know. I think some of it. But I really think they're paying attention to you guys. So I'm just telling you guys, if you care to give a voice to that, give a voice to that. So really cool. The last thing I want to end with is just a last thought on the Guitar Center interview as a whole, and just to understand my belief system. And I just want you guys can put in the comments what you think of this, but I'm just going to tell you, my experience so far in this industry with being in retail, being in, all the levels I've done. And then of course now this, this YouTube channel and the podcast and how I interact with, I said it on the interview with him, and I'm going to say it again. There was a time, and I said people, but I'm just going to say me, because it was me too, but it was a lot of people. There was a time where if Guitar Center went away, wouldn't have gave a crap. I'd been happy, especially when I owned a store. You can imagine if all the 5 Guitar Centers around me closed when I had a store, I'd be like, woohoo, right? Who cares? However, what I have seen in the last 10 years, and I've seen a lot, and I mean intimately seen, is that every time a brick and mortar store, whether that be a chain like Sam Ash or a mom and pop, closes, what I've personally seen is the majority of the customers go online. And the reason I say that is this, and I said this to Gabe off the podcast at the end. And if you ever want to know what we talked about off, it wasn't off the record. The cameras were done and we were walking to the other building and we had a conversation as well. What I told him was, and what I'm telling you, is the internet has not made any new customers in my opinion. There's no new customers. In other words, like the online sellers are not creating a lot of new customers. Brick and mortar stores who create the new students. Maybe guitar lessons online are creating new customers, but I'm talking about retailers. Online retailers, for the most part, are not creating new guitar players. They're not creating new guitar customers, which guitar players are guitar customers, and that's why I talk that way. So that means the fact that they're growing year after year, then every year there's more internet sales than before, means they're taking guitar customers. They're taking them. They're not making them. And you could say that theory is wrong, but I'm going to show you in the numbers how exactly in the last 10 years, that is exactly what the numbers are showing, is that there's less brick and mortar and more online and not a bigger pool of customers to pull from. There's literally just sliding, right? Like an abacus, just sliding over. We're sliding brick and mortar customer to online, brick and mortar customer to online. And that's why I don't have no incentive to help Guitar Center, by the way. They didn't pay me to go there. In fact, because of you guys, because you guys are so amazing, because I got 127,000 views, the video made enough money to pay for my whole trip. So thank you. I appreciate that. But anyways, my point is that I believe when Guitar Center closes 300 stores, it's not going to flow those customers to the brick and mortars. They'll see a small portion of that, but the majority of people will then go online even more so. And the online will go in greater numbers and greater numbers. And I think that's just how it goes. So I think at this point, Guitar Center is as much holding the line for brick and mortar as the brick and mortar mom and pops. Everybody can have their own opinion about that. That's just my thought process. It doesn't mean I'm right. I'm just giving you my thoughts on that. That's why I did the interview. And I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I'm glad they let me do it. And on that note, I will see you guys next Friday. I have no idea what videos come out this week. It's whatever I finish editing. And hopefully if my hearing comes back by Sunday, I'll even finish a video I really want to come out for next week. All right, guys, on that note, thank you for your time. To the next time, know your gear.
The Know Your Gear podcast. Today's episode of the Know Your Gear podcast is brought to you by Patreon members, channel members, and viewers